Hello, everyone. Welcome or welcome back to Dirty Martini. I hope you're doing well and I hope you're having an amazing day. Today's episode will be one of those faux deep convos that I like to have every now and then, so buckle up. And the topic? Birthdays. How fun and exciting, right? Well, no, not really. If you're me and you perceive things the way I do, you probably are also having an annual existential crisis every time your birthday approaches. And this year it has been one of the more intense ones. I feel like this year my anxiety surrounding my birthday has been the worst it has actually ever been. And it has been feeling so uncomfortable and overwhelming that I just didn't want to feel it at all. And I have been keeping myself occupied because the thought of thinking about my birthday and what it symbolizes is just extremely haunting, overwhelming, and scary. And I just didn't have it in me this past month to feel any type of fear and negativity about this aspect of my life because I have been otherwise preoccupied. So I procrastinated feeling this and left it for the last possible moment, and now I feel like I'm about to explode with emotion. Currently, it is 11:26, which means that in 34 minutes it will be my birthday. So when I tell you I'm leaving things for the last moment, please believe me. I cannot imagine a better way to send away 22-year-old me than podcasting and welcoming this quote unquote new version of me than podcasting. But the thing is, guys, I am terrified. I am so scared shitless that I feel like I'm going to shit myself any second. Like I am going to throw up. I have a terrible stomach ache. I am a little bit shaking and I don't know how to cope with it. I am just terrified because 23 is such a big number. And yes, I know that, like, if you're listening to this and you're 50, you're probably thinking, shut the fuck up. But, like, I never thought I would live to see 23. I never perceived myself turning 23. And when I was little, I used to think that people who are what is now going to be my age have their shit together and they know everything and they're proper adults. And now, me being in those shoes, I can tell you that I couldn't have been further from the truth because I don't know anything and it terrifies me. Instead of liberating me, this lack of knowledge, lack of path, lack of direction is terrifying. And I cannot ignore the fears and chaos anymore because my birthday is in now 32 minutes, so I cannot ignore it anymore. So, for once in my life, I want to enter a new age having felt the fear of the future. The thing is, I used to love my birthday when I was a child. Egoistically, it was one of my most favorite days of the year because I am privileged that I would have so many kids over at my parties. I would invite my entire class and people from gymnastics, and we would play games in the that was the water machine. If you're hearing this, I am in Bulgaria because I came to celebrate with my family. So if you hear any noises, it is either the water machine or the fridge. Yes, no geese this week. Perhaps my dogs will start barking. Who knows? The world is your oyster. So I used to have so many people over at my parties, and we would play games in the little yard that was outside the building in which I was living at the time. And of course, I would always cry because it's an absolute mandatory thing that you have to cry on your birthday at least a couple of times. But in general, it used to be a very fun experience. And as of crying, I literally haven't stopped crying for the past 2 days. I feel so overwhelmed. And I was listening to 22 by Taylor Swift today, and I just like started bawling because I remember I was so excited to listen to this song when I eventually turned 22 because that song came out like when I was 10. And I was so looking forward to the day I get to listen to it and relate to it. And I don't feel like I'm ready to let go of 22 because if I could slow down time, I so would. It's I feel comfortable being 22. And I say this every single year when like it's the week before my birthday, but I just feel finally comfortable being the age I am, being the person I am at that age. And I know that age is just a number and it doesn't, like tomorrow, I'm not going to be innately different. I'm still going to be me and I will just have to ride a different age. You know what's really terrifying? That now, when I fill in questionnaires, I belong to a different age group. That is terrifying. Um, and it's just, I feel comfortable and I really wish I could stop time and let things be the way they are, even if it means existing in a little bit of loneliness and sadness every now and then. It's just, I have tamed 22 and 23. I don't know what it has in store for me, but I just feel it in my heart that it's going to be very cathartic. And I don't think I'm ready. And I don't think I'll ever be ready. And I just think it's so cruel that time doesn't wait. And I feel like time is such a burden on me currently. It's this massive rock that I have to keep pushing uphill. And it's like I have to keep pushing it. I have to keep chasing time, but at the same time, I'm chained by time. And it's just, I am stuck in this middle ground of thinking about the past and worrying about the future and never existing in the present. And this is what terrifies me. And I don't know how to cope and I don't know how to verbalize it and I don't know how to feel it properly because it is so extremely emotionally confusing. And I just wish time would give me a little bit of grace to cope with its passing. But unfortunately, that's not how things work. And I just have to be flexible and adapt and readapt constantly because you cannot stop time. You cannot slow down time. And yes, my birthdays when I was a child, they were fun because when you're young, you want to be older. You want to be a grown up and you feel like this birthday symbolizes it, like another candle on the cake. It gets you closer to your goal. And we just used to care in a way that is so different from the way I care now. The older I get, the more the excitement fades. And it's in its place, I feel pressure when it comes to birthdays. Now, symbolically enough, I don't add another candle. I just switch the numbers. Now my candles are numbers, they're not a singular candle. And bring back singular candles. And I don't want to blow out 2 candles, I want to blow out 23 candles to feel the burden of getting older. And I just don't experience birthdays anymore as these inherently happy milestones. And I so should, because getting to live to see another birthday is such a blessing that not everybody gets to experience. And I don't want to see this blessing as a burden, as a curse, as a pressure point. I want it to be an epicenter of happiness, gratitude, and appreciation for life. But the thing is, I just have begun feeling like they're the signification of something I'm just not ready to experience, which is adulthood, which is growing up, which ironically, again, the main thing you want when you're a child. And most of all, you and everyone you love growing old and older. I am so not ready to cope with this. It breaks my heart. Growing old terrifies me, and I know it's oh my God, I'm starting to cry. No, I don't want to cry because like I don't want to be the type of person who cries on the internet. It's just growing old terrifies me. I know it shouldn't. I know I should see it as a privilege, but it's terrifying. And I know it's so stupid because I'm only turning 23, which people keep telling me it is sinfully young to be thinking these stuff, but I just cannot get myself out of this mindset. Everyone keeps telling me, you're young, wait until you get to my age. Then why do I feel like I'm not young anymore? Why do I feel like so burdened? And especially when I perceive others, I will tell a 40-year-old that they're young because they are. And then when it comes to my self-perception, I consider myself ancient. I feel like I've lived so many lives in my lifetime, and it's just, I don't know, it's a lot to cope with. And every year around my birthday, I just start reminiscing on what I have experienced this past year and how I have changed from the year before and what I want to do in the year that's upcoming. And it is my like New Year's 2.0. And it's just a lot. I cannot pinpoint what causes this distortion in perceptions, but it just creates a crushingly heavy burden that I just cannot seem to shake from myself. And when I was little, I used to count down the days to my birthday. And ever since I was in my late teens, a shift happened in my head, and now I subconsciously count the days, but not bursting with excitement, but rather with fear. And because I don't want to think about this, and I don't want to think about this fear and feel this fear and be scared of that fear and be scared of the inevitable, because no matter how terrified I am of time passing, that is not going to change its course. Time will pass. Whether I admit it, whether I participate in it, time will pass. But the thing is, the thought of this is just driving me crazy. And now, when it's a month before my birthday, I just start occupying myself and every single second I have with something. Every single thought I have, I try to replace with something external so that I don't have to think about the storm of emotions that is brewing up in my heart. Because thinking about it just sends me down a spiral. And I feel like birthdays always come with such high expectations that reality is somewhat doomed to be disappointing in a way. And that is so unfair to the authentic human experience that we're supposed to have. I mean, ultimately, the expectations are not irrational, I would like to think. You just want to have a great day that you can look back on fondly. But these expectations, this expectation of the perfect, is usually left unmet by reality. But with me, this negativity, if you will, doesn't stem so much from expectations surrounding the way your day will play out, but more of what it symbolizes. And it is just that I expect a significant shift in my life that I am unprepared for and extremely terrified of. And before you tell me you can't be prepared or you don't have to be prepared, just don't. Like, that's not going to change anything. The last thing that helps with irrational thoughts is rationality. I don't want advice. I just want someone to listen. I will figure it out. I always do. And it never ends up being as scary as I thought it was going to be. I don't need help simply because I refuse to be helped in life in any capacity, which is a whole another topic about hyper independence and the feeling like you are a burden for simply being a human. So because I can only deal with one part of my emotional stability crumbling at a time, I say let's stick to the birthday topic. Because if I'm not able to deal with the thought of my birthday being so soon, 21 minutes, guys, I am panicking. Which my birthday is something that happens only once a year. thank God, because imagine if I had to go through this multiple times a year. So if I'm not ready and kind of unwilling to face this, I am most definitely not able to cope with the detriments of hyper independence and that I actually feel on the daily. So, birthdays. Last year, the day before my birthday, was one of the worst days I have ever had in my life to date. Because I just in general feel so unprepared when it comes to growing up. Everything seems so chaotic and uncertain and blurry and confusing, and I don't know what to make out of it. And especially last year, I was in such a transitionary period in my life, and I was just stuck at a crossroad. I had just returned from an exchange, which taught me a lot about myself. I had moved back to a different country. I was about to start writing my thesis and then hopefully graduate from my bachelor's degree in 3 months. Then I would have to say goodbye to my friends because they were leaving the country, me not knowing when the next time I will see them is going to be. Then also I didn't know what I'm supposed to do afterwards, after I graduate, and I felt so pressured to know because the decision making had deadlines, like literally like university applications have deadlines. And I didn't know if I wanted to do another degree or do a gap year or stop with studying altogether. I didn't know if I should find a full-time job or stick to my part-time job. And I had just created the podcast and I was still figuring out if it's my thing. I had just found a job after being rejected by more than, I'm not over exaggerating, more than 150 places. And I was doing terribly when it came to my finances. And I didn't know if I want to stay in the same city. I didn't know if I want to stay in the same country. I didn't know if my exchange would have affected my life in the Netherlands and the relationships I had with people there and with people back home. I knew all my friends were leaving and I was running out of time when it came to living with them. I was so extremely emotionally overwhelmed and I felt indescribably lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I wanted to be. I didn't know where I belong. And I didn't know where I want to be. And I just remember 30 minutes before my birthday, literally a year ago on the 26th of March, because I'm the type of person who always waits for their birthday before they go to bed. I am just extremely symbolic with the way I see life, as you probably have noticed. And I have my little pre-birthday rituals to send away that era of my life that is ending and welcome a new one. I write myself letters to read on my next birthday. I just finished writing a 4-page letter to myself. I take videos trying to express what's going on in my mind. So this year it's not going to be a video, it's going to be a podcast. And I just try to commemorate and retain the now because in this moment it is the only thing I know and I don't know what's going to be the next thing that happened. And I also try to slow down the now, but this fear of the future is just all consuming. So last year, 30 minutes before my birthday, I just went downstairs and my sister and my mom were still awake and I just started uncontrollably crying. I was having one of the hardest crying sessions of my life because I was so scared. I was so lost. I was tired. I was exhausted. And I was so confused because nobody tells you shit about growing up. And that is just unfair. There's no rule book, no guidelines when it comes to being an adult and existing in the world. And sure, like laws and stuff, but no navigation about the existence beyond the legal system. And that is just not the way it is when you're a child. When you're a child and you're still exploring life with the curiosity of first experiences, your parents are there if you have parents or another adult figure in your life that has been guiding you throughout your life. And they're there to tell you, don't do this, do that. This will hurt you, this will benefit you. And to a certain extent, they make decisions for you. There is also legal responsibility. So you hopefully feel and know that there is some sort of safety net when it comes to those stuff. Because, I pray that the adults you had in your life when you were children were there to protect you ultimately, to help you prevent making their mistakes. But the thing is, because you're a child, and childhood and youth come not only with curiosity, they come with a healthy dose of stupidity, if you wish. And you're naive and you think you know best. You're always right. You're invincible. You're in on a secret of life nobody else has figured out yet. And I feel like the more I grow up, the more I realize how wrong I got it at times. My perceptions of everything and everyone have shifted over time. And thank God, because this lack of stagnancy signifies movement. And as long as we're moving, as long as we're progressing, even if this progress is a fluctuating one, we are okay. And we're going to be okay. So because of all of this, you still do make mistakes. And also, a little side note, you're more likely to be forgiven for your mistakes because you're still a child and you don't know better. But the older you get, naturally, the harsher the expectations get when it comes to expectations regarding being a human. Because we're forgiving to children, but not as forgiving to adults, because adults are supposed to know better, but we forget that adults are also living for the first time. And it's just, in general, the older you get, I feel like the less forgiveness there is. There is less compromise because you should know better, but sometimes you just don't know at all. And I feel like we can learn something from our past selves. Maybe we can learn compassion and forgiveness, where compassion and forgiveness are granted and deserved. And I get it, not everything should be forgiven, but when we were little, my friends and I would get into an argument, yell at each other, call each other names. We would beat each other. And then 30 minutes later, we would be best friends again and just go play in the schoolyard. This lack of holding a burden because the joy we felt from being together was larger than the desire to be right. Maybe we need to bring this back. And again, I recognize that not everything is forgivable and not everything should be forgiven, but we should also remember that not everything is personal. And the way we are entitled to make mistakes because it is our first time living, we should also not deprive others from their right to be human either. Because humans make mistakes. Humans are flawed. Humans err. And that is okay. But back to the guidelines. When you're a child and the lack of guidelines when you're an adult. So a parent, a guardian, a teacher, a coach, or anyone else tells you, don't do this to protect you, to prepare you. But at a certain point, this existential guidance is no longer there, or it's not that strict. Rules like, don't stay up late, don't eat this because you ruin your dinner, or don't eat yellow snow, just become mere suggestions. And it is you who has the autonomy to make decisions. And at first that feels so good and so liberating because you can finally do whatever it is that you want to do. But then, I don't know if everyone has this, but I certainly have it. It comes a moment in which you're like, I just want someone to tell me what to do. Partially because you want someone else to blame if things go to hell, if I'm being fully transparent with you, but more than not because you're not ready to take off the supporting wheels, even though you begged for it. Life has been skinning your knees and you just want your knee pads back. And it is scary, it is chaotic, and it is extremely, extremely confusing, and indescribably difficult to cope with at first. Because no matter how much preparation you have underwent, no matter how structured, relevant, extensive, efficient, and effective your lessons have been, it is still scary because you're continuously learning about the world, but now there is nobody to protect you from the consequences. And those experiences you are gaining those experiences through the lens of an adult now. And you've never been an adult before. You've only been a child and you don't know how to be an adult because you only know how to be a child, but you only realize you've known how to be a child once you're no longer a child. Because while you're in the moment, while you're in the situation, and especially if it is the only thing you have ever known, it is difficult to take yourself out of it and look at it from a different angle. And it's like you realize you want to be a child once you perceive your childhood slipping away and becoming a distant past. And I just hope that no matter how adult I become, I never lose the connection to my childhood self. I hope I keep rediscovering her. I hope I make her proud. I hope I become the person she wants to be. Because the thing is, my suspicion is nobody has their shit together, but nobody talks about not having their shit together. And this creates the illusion of original experiences in grief, in struggle, in growing up. Because I feel like we are more alike than we would like to admit, because there is this terrible social stigma around struggle and honesty with struggle. And I hope, well, it perhaps will not happen in my lifetime, but I hope it happens sometime in the future, if a future exists, because at the way we are ecologically doing, who knows? But I just hope we eradicate this fear, the embarrassment, the shyness from authenticity in pain and in success, so that we can just jointly experience life outside the limitations of this imposed on us isolation. And this new lens that you're acquiring, it takes some time to readjust, because it is still you, but not really, because you're changing, but you still carry who you were, at least to a certain extent. But now it is also a completely different social scenery and environment, because this new you is in essence a continuation of the things you have learned before and who you were before. But because there is a new set of expectations and you have a new social role, it doesn't feel connected to you. It feels disconnected from your childhood. And I just really wish that growing up wasn't the suggestion that we are losing our childhood self. I feel like a big chunk of our childhood, especially now in this more mentally aware era of the world we are in, is spent on reconnecting to that child. Because you're not that disconnected from who you were as you thought you were, as you were made to be, to feel like, actually. Because I feel like it is a lot centered around these two aspects being two distinct periods, which suggests that you are two very distinct people. And what is even more confusing is that in this second phase of your life, this perceived adulthood life, which is the majority of your life, you will not be this one person forever, because you keep living, you keep growing, you keep learning, and you keep changing. Because that is the thing, change is constant and it is inevitable. The person I was last year, I'm no longer. The person I was when I was 20, I'm no longer. And I do carry them and what they taught me and what they experienced, but I just feel disconnected still. I think of them as a third person, and I often struggle to perceive them as me, because the only me I can somewhat perceive is the me now, even though I don't live in the current moment because I'm clinging on to the past and worrying about the future. And sure, the me now is the result of the existence of the me then, but it is just so disconnected for whatever reason. And I imagine that a year from now, I will have changed as well. Because every single day, whether you realize it or not, you're gaining life experience, which consciously or subconsciously is teaching you something as Pinterest circa 2013 as this sounds. And while this autonomy that you have in your adulthood, be it autonomy in your decision making, autonomy in your living situation, in your finances, and your political affiliation, because I know a lot of people feel pressure to conform to the politics of the family, even though they may perhaps not necessarily agree with them. So, this overall autonomy that you're experiencing, it can and it should be perceived as freeing, as liberating, as the opportunity to become your own person. But that is so much easier said than done. Before you achieve the positivity of the liberation, of the freedom, it is pure chaos because you don't know nothing. You don't know who you are. You don't know who you want to be. Or even if you know who you want to be, maybe you're not sure how to get there, even if you have a plan. Because there are so many unexpected things that you cannot have taken into consideration because you've never had to face the challenges that you're facing in your adulthood. And I'm not saying that being a child is easy and doesn't come with challenges. Of course, there are many people who have difficult experiences being a child. I'm just referring yet again to this social pressure that comes with specific norms, requirements, and expectations when you're an adult. Guys, I will stop for a little second because it's 4 minutes. I feel like I just need to listen to 22 Taylor's version one last time, and I will hear from you. Well, you will hear from me when I am officially 23, but 22-year-old me is signing out. This for you will literally last a second, but give me a few minutes, please. Okay, I am officially 23 years old. And 1 minute, I am freaking out. I was just now crying listening to 22 by Taylor Swift. I feel so empty. I don't know, like I'm just so overwhelmed. I I was really not ready for that. And like it just happened. Nothing changed. The world keeps on spinning. I am still breathing. Everything is fine. Nothing radically changed when the clock struck midnight, but I just started bawling. So, societal pressure. I feel like you're supposed to have your shit figured out. You're supposed to have a home. You're supposed to have a job. You're supposed to be financially independent and financially stable. You're supposed to save up money, but also make irrational and stupid financial decisions, but not too many. And it's all too much to deal with at once because it is like all of this has been gathering all throughout the years and it's poured on top of your head in a single blip of time. And it's like, which one do I deal with first? And sure, people say avoid looking at where you have to be 10 years from now. Focus on the step in front of you. Focus on surviving today, the week, the month, the year. But then they ask you, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And man, let me have emotional and existential myopia, I think is how you pronounce it, for a bit here while I readjust my lens. It is so difficult to focus on being in the present and making the most out of the present when there's so much uncertainty and anxiety around your future. And guys, I'm trying to ignore the crisis I'm currently going through in real time. I hope you enjoy this authenticity. It is scary, and I'm so happy I'm podcasting now because I wouldn't want it any other way. Because if I wasn't podcasting right now, I would just be crying. And I feel like now I can talk through the things I am experiencing right now and hopefully lift some of the pressure off, because time passes and I feel like everything is out of control and my life is slipping through my fingers, and the older I get, the faster it passes and I can't seem to slow it down. And all of this emotion is like a burden that is just weighing me down, and I cannot cope with all the changes, especially when I have no time to cope with them because I'm otherwise preoccupied. But also at the same time, to a certain extent, purposefully, I preoccupy myself so that I don't have to think about the things that are going on in my life, because I feel like if I take the time to think and take the time to feel, considering how much I do it unintentionally, I will just like fall apart. And it is so much easier to go with inertia than go with living a truthful, purposeful experience. It is easier, even if detrimental, or perhaps it is easier, namely because it is detrimental. So, emotional self ignorance is a bliss in the short term, but the hardest curse in the grand scheme of life. And you know what the problem is? That in my head, I just perceive myself as old. Because 22 is basically 20, but 23 is basically 25, and 25 is basically 30. This is how I perceive it. And I know it's so wrong to perceive it like this, and I know that I should not perceive age as a number that defines me and defines who I am, but as a woman, you're socially viable until you turn 30. And this societal pressure of running out of time is such a heavy weight to carry. Because if a woman is not married and doesn't have children by the time she's 30, questions arise. Hell, people have been questioning me since I was 20. And focusing on my career or focusing on my education or focusing on myself is not enough of a justification for a woman to live the way she's living, because for whatever reason, women always need to justify their decisions. Women always need to justify their existence. But I'm sorry, but if a man is 30 and doesn't have a wife, doesn't have children, and says, I'm focusing on my career, my education, myself, blah, 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 he is being applauded. He's determined, he's hardworking. But as a woman, we're not ascribed the same qualities. We're just constantly reminded that our biological clocks are ticking and we should pay attention to it, because if we don't tend to it, we will regret it. Doesn't matter if we want children or not. And this societal pressure is making me so scared. And I don't know how to cope with that fear, because I'm transitioning into being a woman, and I'm just a girl. And I feel like I recognize that this is so irrational, but like it's a doctrine. It is imposed on you in every aspect. Every woman faces the fear of growing older because, society only gives you so much, because your role is equated to your looks, not to who you are. And society doesn't like old women. And getting to grow up and get older is a privilege. And I want to be able to see it as such. I don't want to be socially punished for growing old because the world doesn't like aging women. Look at Pamela Anderson. She has been going to red carpet events with no makeup on, and people are tearing her apart. Of course, there are people who are embracing her and the movement she's trying to start and the idea she's trying to put forward about women being humans. Who would have thought? And breaking news, humans age. And I'd have a wrinkle and I have white hairs, and that should be okay. There's also so much cosmetics that you're supposed to use to stay youthful, because a woman is never supposed to age. Your value is equated to your youth. Look at TV representation. Look at the narratives we're being fed. People tell me I don't look 22, but do you actually know what a 22-year-old looks like? Because, for example, 30-year-olds are playing teenagers on TV and they have their 30-year-old features. So there is this distortion of image. I kid you not, 2 weeks ago, when I was allowing myself to feel part of the existential crisis, in a moment of severe downward spiral, I even Googled, what is a 22-year-old girl supposed to look like? Because I no longer know. I don't know if I look youthful. I don't know if I look old for my age. I don't know if I look exactly my age. And the thing is, I don't want to care. I don't want to have to care. I don't want to have to sit in front of the mirror and inspect if my forehead has already wrinkles. I don't want to prevent myself from smiling because I'll get smile lines, and I don't want to not express emotions because my forehead will wrinkle. So fuck you, society, for putting a deadline to our social viability and existence. A hard, unlooped fuck you. And what is even more, I feel like societally, socially, we have created a narrative around being 20 as your first year outside of your teenage years, around 21, because of, well, the narrative is particularly centered in the US because this is their initiation in adulthood, because they finally become legally adults. Whereas where I come from, this happens at 18. At 18, I become a legal adult. You just don't want to know me at my 18-year-old self, because like the concept of I am legally an adult, that was a lot to cope with. But at 18, my parents have no legal responsibilities towards me. Then people tell you about turning 25 as a middle point, as the point in which your frontal lobe develops, and then they talk about your late 20s simply because they're transitioning points to your 30s. And your 30s, as I already mentioned, are your last point of existence as a woman socially in many, many aspects. But the problem is, nobody tells you shit about 22. Well, apart from Taylor Swift. But in general, there is so much murkiness around 22, 23, 24, 26, 27, 28. Nobody tells you shit about the middle ground. They only tell you about stuff that are considered milestones that have been societally created, and the middle is just chaotic because the next social mission is to hit the next societal milestone. But what do you do in the meantime? What is your existence defined by? And I feel like this is why I'm having such a hard time turning 23, being 23 for the past 12 minutes, because in the grand scheme of life, 23 is so young. And in adult years, 23 means that I have been an adult for only 3 years, or in Bulgarian terms for 5. So still a toddler or a kindergartner. So you cannot expect from a toddler to be self-sustained, fully functioning individual. And I'm not saying that I'm a toddler and that I should be treated as such. It's just that I'm saying that we should try to lift off the pressure of being in your 20s, because being in your 20s has this specific connotation. If you go on social media, if you talk to any single person who has peaked in their 20s, they tell you your 20s are the best years of your life. Your youth is the best period of your life. This is what life is all about. Everything goes downhill from there because you have responsibilities. You have this, you have that, blah, 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 blah. Shut the fuck up. Leave me alone. Leave me be. Sure, in your 20s, your body is at its peak if you are physically okay, but your mental health is oftentimes at its lowest because you're making these big changes without a safety net, but you're never allowed to talk about it because it's supposed to be the best years of your life. And if you don't perceive them as your best years, then you're doing it wrong because you're apparently not living life to the fullest, to this fullest that society has created and has established as a norm of living your 20s. This stencil, if you wish. There is a lot of embarrassment and there is a lot of doubt, and not only fear of missing out, but fear of not living. Because, for example, the last time I went clubbing was on March 8th, 2024. So in my 22nd year of life, I did not go clubbing at all. And people my age, my friends in the Netherlands especially, they go clubbing once a week at least. And while I recognize that, for example, clubbing may not be my thing, hence why I don't do it, and that should be okay, I also feel this pressure that now I need to go clubbing. Now I need to go and fuck up. Now I need to go and get drunk every week. Because this is what society expects of me. This is what society has nourished the narrative of what your 20s should look like. And if you're in your 20s and deviate from these perceptions and expectations, you feel like you're less, like you're not doing enough, like you're not living life well enough. And this is an extremely heavy burden to carry, and it is so difficult to take yourself out of this mindset because I used to go clubbing when I was a teenager. And then in my 20s, I went to the Netherlands. Everybody was clubbing for the first time because they had never clubbed when they were teenagers because they're not Balkan. And I had already had my prime clubbing experiences. So to me, clubbing was nothing new. It was nothing exciting. It was just another thing that did not entice me the way it used to when I was, for example, 16. And that is the thing. Everybody has their own timeline, and it is so difficult to uphold to your own calendar, adhere to your own pace, and adhere to your own line when everybody is expected to fill a certain image, to fulfill a certain narrative, and is constantly being compared to each other. And these are chains that are so constraining and limiting, and that I want to break free from because I don't want to live my 20s thinking that I'm not living my 20s the way I should be living my 20s. I want to live my 20s the way I see fit, not the way social media or a random person tells me. And I feel so much pressure to go clubbing, to travel, to pick up hobbies, to run a marathon, to eat healthy, but also drink all the time and enjoy fast food because the older you get, the more difficult it is for you to recover. I feel this pressure to be happy, to study, to make money, but also don't slave away, even though the political and economic state, shout out Jaden Smith, you would enjoy this podcast. So the political and economic state of the world right now is falling apart. You're supposed to have a job, but you're also supposed to study. And you don't even get me started on people who cannot comprehend the fact that there are people who are studying and working at the same time. You're supposed to be this extreme, reckless individual, but you're also supposed to be a part of a community, be sensible, be calculated, accommodating, and convenient. You're supposed to find your own boundaries and fight for them, but you're also supposed to compromise them because you want to be a part of a society and you want to belong. Because if you don't belong, then you're an outcast. And who wants to be an outcast? You're supposed to make mistakes, but don't make too many mistakes because you should know better. And how you know without learning is none of my business, but you should do it. You're supposed to know inherently somehow. Start a YouTube channel, but never use social media again. Find hobbies, meditate, work out, be single, be in a relationship. Learn to love yourself as you are, but also don't forget that you're supposed to change everything about you down to atoms. Be skinny, but also gain weight. Learn a new language, learn how to cook, find a proper well-paying job, but also do a working holiday and just do a gap year. Be a nomad, but also buy a house. Shut up. I am tired. Fuck you and all your expectations and all you, this is what you're supposed to be doing in your 20s. This is what your 20s are supposed to be like. My 20s are supposed to be about me. and not you and your perceptions. And perhaps this is a bit radical to say, but those are not my best years, and I refuse to let them be. Not because I refuse to live my life to the fullest, and not because I regret the way I'm living my 20s, although sometimes I do question if I regret it, but those are not my best years because I refuse to adhere to the standard and to this narrative that is being put forward for many, many years. I refuse to idolize a period of my life at the detriment of the rest of my life. Because if this is the peak of life, what is the point of living past 29? And people who say, enjoy your 20s, you have no responsibilities, I hate this narrative. I hate this viewpoint because it is such an entitled point of view. And I hate this narrative of you're too old or you're too young for certain things. Why should experiences have an age limit? Why should life have a deadline that is before death? I don't get it. And if your 20s are your best years and you think this is it for you, amazing. Go live your life to the fullest. But this is what I'm trying to distance myself from. And the thing is, I am just so comfortable being 22 just 21 minutes ago. I feel like every single time I finally become comfortable with my life as is, with the wage which I am, it changes. I know that life is continuous and it's not periodical, and I just really wish sometimes things would just slow down. Because every year for a month before my birthday, I start saying stuff like, oh, but next month I'm turning X. As in, when someone asks me, how old are you? I don't say just I'm 22. I say I'm 22, but in a month I'm turning 23. It is like I condition myself into getting into the mindset that I am changing ages. It's like I prematurely age myself, and it's just so that I can finally and comfortably ease into this situation and into this change. Because if I don't think about it and I just wake up 23, having not thought about it, which is somewhat the thing that's happening now, and knowing how emotional I am as a person and how deeply I feel stuff and how much I think about stuff, I would not be able to handle such a transition overnight, even though it literally happens overnight, even though it literally just happened. And it's just so scary because age is a label. Labels are by nature constraining, labels are defining, and labels come with certain expectations that you have to fulfill. I was so scared of 22, and while it hasn't been anything wild, it has been a very rewarding journey, I would say. And I know that 3 days after my birthday, I will not be thinking about turning 23. And I know that ultimately, on the day of my birthday, which is today, I will not feel any different. When I wake up, it will just be another day. But I just feel scared. Yes, Lord, it does feel scary growing old. Getting old. What is the lyric? Ribs by Lord. Especially when such big decisions are made at such a young age. And I'm just not ready to be a full-on adult because I'm still a toddler adult. And yes, I know that for the past 4 years I have been self-sustaining, self-sufficient, independent, in any way you can think about it. So in societal terms, I am an adult, but I just don't feel like one. And I have this fear which just creates nostalgia for the present moment because I can just feel it slipping through my fingers and me just watching it and not participating in it. And I'm so scared and I don't know what to do. And I just know that I don't want to grow up. And I know I'm lucky that I get to grow up, but it's so frightening and uncertain and chaotic. And I just want to cry until my tears water the soil of my soul and I blossom into a child again. Because now I know how to navigate situations in which I was feeling lost and confused and needed help. But it took me being lost to gain the knowledge. So it is extremely ironic that how you just know things retrospectively, but in the moment, you don't know. It takes you going through that moment, getting through the unknown to finally know retroactively. And honestly, I don't know if I would go back and erase my mistakes because my mistakes made me the person I am. And I have been beginning to feel comfortable in my skin. My 22nd year has been a year in which I created an extremely crucial and fulfilling relationship to myself because I finally started perceiving myself as a person. And I'm so scared of being 23 because I never thought I would live to see 23. I thought 16 was it for me. And while I'm trying to see this whole thing as this whole not knowing as freedom, it is just chaotic. And I don't know what to do and which way to go. And nobody ever talks about being 23 because it's just an odd number. Again, people talk about 21 and 25, but nobody tells you shit about 23. And I don't want to waste my life wondering what to do and who to be. I just want to be and to do. I know that doesn't necessarily make sense, but in my head it does. And I'm having an existential crisis because it does feel so scary getting old because I've never been an adult before and this new level is about to unlock and I'm just so unprepared. But I don't think I could ever be prepared, and it's just I know how to be a child, but I only realized I know how to be a child when I started exiting my childhood because only then was I able to comprehend I was a child. And I don't want my life to be this unbreakable, vicious cycle of knowing in retrospect, but never knowing in the present, and always trying to catch up, but always missing the train. I know I cannot know things in advance, but I'm so clueless. It's just making me want to cry until I become a child again. Because people tell you, don't rush to grow up, but because you've never been a grown up, you can't fully comprehend what they mean. Because all you ever known is only what you've lived. And looking back, I can see what they meant. And now it's the whole thing. Enjoy your 20s all over again. And I don't want to waste my present wishing I was in the past or in the future because that would mean I would never actually be who I am. I would just be clinging on to past perceptions of myself that I'm already distanced from, or some dreams of the future that may well not come true. I love reminiscing and daydreaming, but I don't want daydreaming and remembering to ruin existing as the person I would in the future look back at and want to be. It is confusing. I know. I'm even beginning to confuse myself. I tried to put it into words. I don't know if any of this made sense. I hope you get the gist of it. And some, I am scared. So, to avoid any further headaches, I say let's leave it here. Thank you so much for listening. I do feel a little bit better now, even though my heart is racing, my throat is hurting, I'm losing my voice, and I just want to throw up and cry. But I will be okay. I promise. I have no other choice. And I will figure it out like I always do. It is bittersweet to send away 22. I can just hope that 23 will be kind to me. Okay, I am starting to tear up again for the I don't know what time now. So thank you for listening. Stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, and don't support genocide. See you in a new era. Bye.